Back to Nigeria. The Secretary General of the World Customs Organization and Saunders today was at the Customs Forum. Of course, Mr. Saunders says that the WCO stands ready to support African customs in their bid to achieve harmonized and integrated customs procedures that would help the continent fast-track its intra-Africa trade regime. The WCO chief was speaking earlier today at the opening of the three-day Customs Pact Roundtable Partnership for African Cooperation in Trade. And that's organized by the Nigeria Customs Service with the support of the Afrexim Bank and the AFCFTA Secretariat. Now, the World Customs Organization Secretary General and Saunders joins me live here in our Abuja studios for a brief chat. Good evening to you, Mr. Secretary General. Thank you very much for making the time. It's been a very a busy day for you, so let's just have some time with you here. In what key areas do you think Africa's regional customs need to fast-track the process of harmonization, integration, cooperation?
Sure. Two areas that I think are important for the customs administrations of the continent to focus on in the very near term are relate to those disciplines that are key to administering preference under the African Continental Free Trade Area. So things like a harmonized system, the way that we classify goods, and unifying under the harmonized system 2022. It's an area in which we've done quite a bit of work, but it basically puts the customs administrations using the same lexicon in terms of how goods are identified and what treatment they should receive based on how they're classified. So getting all of the customs administrations using the same version of the harmonized system is something to be fast-tracked. Another thing deals with administration of origin procedures. Again, preference ties to determination of origin. So making sure that there's a sound basis in that discipline, a sound foundation and knowledge on how to administer rules of origin that support the agreement is another thing that is important for integration so that goods are afforded the treatment that is expected under the agreement. The other thing, the third area that I would suggest is something that warrants near-term attention is looking at transit procedures. There are a number of landlocked countries on the continent, and landlocked countries depend on efficient transit procedures in order to get access to seaports. So looking at the efficiencies of those procedures, I think, is another area that warrants attention. Yeah,
digitalization and modernization, part of what you're talking about, and we want to increase intra-Africa trade. What type of technology do you think we need? What type of innovation do you think Mesa, Sadiq, others, East African community and others, the North African customs leadership need to onboard?
I think the critical issue is to have everyone unified in their focus on digitalization. Again, with increasing volumes, and in order to manage that, juxtaposing that increase in volume, that increasing information with the high expectations that the public and the private sector have for the movement of goods, the only way really to manage that information is through automated systems. Again, the WCO doesn't promote any specific system, but I think that there needs to be leadership at the customs level and higher than the customs level to make the investments in automated systems that are able to collect and ingest the information, that allow customs and other agencies to analyze the information, determine the risks so that they can be treated accordingly, and also to enable the possibility of exchange of information across customs administrations so that as a transaction may move across multiple customs jurisdictions, the possibility exists with a proper level of cooperation to have that information related to that transaction follow along the route and be used in the same way so there isn't duplication of effort. So I think that having a focus on digitalization, making sure that whatever platform is chosen, there's an ability to communicate across systems, and that there's a universal understanding about what data is needed to support the transaction, so that there's a level of consistency and a firmer level of expectation that the trade can have in terms of what's going to be asked of them, what do they need to provide in order to have their goods cleared properly.
Interesting. Are you encouraged with some of the things you see being done by customs across Africa yet?
I am. There is a focus on digitalization. Certainly, this is an area that the global customs community has focused on for quite some time. So this is something that we've known that we needed to do for decades. It just takes a long time because the investments in these systems is significant. So some of it is just, I think, turning the corner and making sure that customs is able to get permission to invest and gets the resources to invest in these systems that will allow it to operate in the manner that everyone expects, given the demands of the day. But there are good things that are happening. There are moves in the context of the AFCFTA. There's been substantial work on an electronic certificate of origin. I mentioned origin administration is one of the key issues in making the agreement successful. Having the certification process of origin in an electronic form that will be used universally across the state's parties is something that is a significant move. And again, it presumes the ability to process and handle information electronically. So in some ways, if you aren't there with a system that can accommodate this yet, it pushes you in the direction of being able to digitalize other aspects of your customs operations. There are other things unrelated to the agreement itself, but are helpful in the context of trade facilitation that are also happening in the continent. We've had a number of countries in the continent use time release studies as a way to understand what time is taken at each step of the clearance process and which parties is responsible, and using that time release study to understand where the bottlenecks are so that they can focus their attention on fixing the problems where they exist.
And come back cut down on delays and things like that.
Exactly, and there's substantial gains in time that have been made with successful use of time release studies.
In trade,
time is money.
Time is everything.
Absolutely.
So how is the World Customs Organization, your organization, supporting Africa, cooperation, partnerships? What's going on that?
So we've had the good fortune at the World Customs Organization to have several sponsors, including the European Union, Japan, and others, sponsor multi-year programs that have allowed us to work with the African customs administrations in some of these core customs disciplines. So getting the states parties to the 2022 version of the harmonized system, we were able to make that happen via a multi-year program sponsored by the European Union. Similarly, we've done substantial work on training and rules of origin. Now, in both this classification and origin area, we focused on providing training, but more importantly, we focused on positioning trainers and experts, cultivating this expertise within the customs administrations so that there is the ability to maintain and institutionalize this knowledge across the state's parties. Thousands of customs officers have been trained in these disciplines, and that creates a more uniform playing field for the trade, a more consistent treatment in these core disciplines that determine how goods are treated in the AFCFTA context.
Interested, and I'm sure you're enjoying the start of the African Customs. You've got about 3 more days or so. You've got a keynote address to deliver tomorrow.
Indeed.
What will be your key message?
It's going to be about digitalization and the importance of it, and the elements of that being, one, to make sure that we're looking at processes in a modern way so that we have an eye on efficiency. Another part is making sure that in the context of digitalization that we're taking seriously the need to have proper platforms. Again, it's one thing to have digital information available to you, it's quite another thing to process it. We have to make sure that we have platforms that are able to handle this information. And the other thing is partnerships. Customs can't do it alone. The border clearance process is more than customs. There are a number of regulatory agencies with border-related responsibilities that factor into how goods are treated at the border. So making sure customs isn't working this alone, that it has a community, and that there's a whole of government approach to trade facilitation.
The entire ecosystem.
Yes, and also the private sector, because supply chain visibility, understanding supply chain risk is a significant part of trade facilitation. Working with the private sector, having those consultative mechanisms to understand who's involved and do they pose a risk, and where they don't, that gives us the grounds for providing facilitative treatment. So looking at consultation between customs and other government agencies, customs and the private sector, customs and other stakeholders, a significant part as we look at what customs modernization looks like. Yeah,
quite a lot of learning curve, but thank you so much for giving us what I call a sneak preview of your keynote address tomorrow morning.
Certainly, happy to.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Do have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for speaking with us here on the Arise Exchange. That's Saunders, the Secretary General of the World Customs Organization.